Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Gene Bishop. Thank you. I'd like to thank Chris and Manny for having me here, NBAA as well. This is my first time speaking at an NBAA event, so please excuse me, the butterflies are still here. Just a couple of, I'm kind of the color commentator for this presentation, so if you have any questions, and I'm sure there will be some, we're having the last part of the presentation will be a Q&A session. I just wanted to go over a couple of things I've learned in my time flying into and out of Mexico. There's no substitute for a good handler on the ground in Mexico. Put that out first and foremost. They make my job far easier than it would be, just because the number of regulations and laws and the frequency with which they change, unless you're doing it every day, it's too much to keep up with. You know, for somebody who flies to Mexico once or twice a month. So having that expertise in your back pocket is worth its weight in gold. It's peace of mind. So if you're not already using an experienced ground handler, I highly recommend doing so. As many touched on, the cabotage laws in Mexico are something that a lot of people either don't understand or understand incorrectly, myself included up to about a year ago. For Part 91 operators, it essentially doesn't apply. You can pretty much do whatever you want. You can fly domestically within Mexico, so long as you have a letter outlining the relationship between the passengers and the aircraft owner. 135 is different, as many alluded to. You're allowed one stop in Mexico, not counting tech stops or security checks, which I believe are Tampico and one other location where they do the security checks coming from the south. I don't know. I think it's noted in the slideshow. But short of that, you're allowed one stop. There's a possibility for exceptions to policy if you want to do a domestic flight within Mexico. They are approved on a case-by-case basis, I believe.
Actually, for instance, if the group of passengers will remain the same person, the civil aviation can grant you a single event permit in case you don't have a blanket, because the operators that are interested in getting the blanket permit is because our frequent flies under 135. Like for instance, if you have a rock band and they are touring 3 or 4 stops within Mexico, and they might be coming California to look at them Monterrey, Guadalajara, and they're going to be the same passenger and it's a charter flight, the civil aviation, they will grant you that authorization. It's not a permit, it's not authorization for a single event. And you just need to be crystal clear and they will grant you. Now, if you are a frequent flyer, you need to comply to the official Mexican ruling with the blanket permit that I mentioned, and you will be more than safe.
Thank you. I fly primarily Part 91, so most of this doesn't apply to me. I do the occasional 135, so I'm learning as I go as well. But that is something they're cracking down on, something they're looking for. If your passengers, 135 passengers, want to add somebody at the last minute, be very careful with that. Make sure that your company is the one that brought that passenger into Mexico. If they came in via airline or another operator, you're going to run into snags trying to get them out of the country. What else? Actually flying in Mexico, there's a couple of important distinctions and differences from flying here in the U.S. or other places. Their terminology is a little bit different as far as approaches. What we call a GPS or RNAV approach, they call an RNP approach. RNP approaches in the U.S. require crew training and authorization. In Mexico, their standard GPS approach is just a difference in terminology, so if your crew calls you and says, you know, we can't fly in there, they only have R&B approaches, they're just the Mexican equivalent of a GPS approach in the States. No special authorizations required. Once you're on the ground, and this is speaking strictly from my personal experience, my policy is to fuel upon arrival. If the airplane's going to be sitting for a few days, I'd rather have the fuel on board in case the passengers want to leave last minute. In my experience, I've not had any issues with delays on getting fuel, but I know several pilots who have, and it's fairly embarrassing to be sitting there waiting for hours with passengers on board the airplane, waiting for a fuel truck. Their priority down there is airlines, so if you're in an airport with airline service and it's busy time, you're going to be sitting and waiting, and you'll be at the bottom of the list for a while. So again, I prefer to get fuel upon arrival. That way it's over and done, and I don't have to worry about it during departure. I also stay with the airplane if it's going to be moved on the ramp. A lot of these smaller airports, the personnel, they don't operate the same way we do here, where you've got a wing walker on each wing and one person towing and one person watching. Quite often it's one person responsible for moving the airplane, whether it's a 172 or a G650. And there have been instances where airplanes have been damaged because of lack of wing walkers. So what my crew and I do is we'll stay with the airplane, get fuel, and make it clear to the ground staff that we'll be waiting until the airplane is moved and parked. And usually they seem to appreciate the assistance. It's just really hard, and they're short-handed, you know, and they're under time crunch as well, so having the extra help from the crew seems to be well received. I'm sorry, I'm shaking my notes. Passports. Another policy, learned the hard way through lessons learned by my friends. I don't close the door until we verify all the passports for both the crew and the passengers. That's saved some hassle and headache on 2 occasions so far. There are ways, I believe, to deal with passengers and crew members who don't have their passports, but it's a fairly big hassle from what I'm told.
I mean, it's the handler will make some magic. Honestly, I mean, they will get a copy. They might be getting the passport in an overnight FedEx. It has happened. Not, at least, not in my 20 years. I was in Cabo San Lucas last week, and I saw a passenger without his passport. He was like kind of stressed. They fix it. They clear it. That's it.
Okay. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'm sorry, this is... lastly, security on the ramp. Quite often these airports don't operate 24/7. Their security forces are minimal, so you'll have a ramp full of multi-million-dollar aircraft sitting out there basically unsecured. So I use the little security stickers on all doors and openings. They can't be locked. And it's just another form of peace of mind to ensure that your aircraft's not being tampered with while you're not with it. I think that's about all I got. I apologize. If you have any questions, we'll take those at the end.